Hello, good night, teacher. My name is Andrea Loor, and this is my ID card. Right now, I'm going to explain how agreement and government cases work in real context by integrating them in a story. My story. So let's start. First, we have our cover. Many years ago, when I just started teaching English, I had a classroom with 20 students to whom I taught 2 hours a week. Very little time, but it was established by the government of the time. As you will see, several decades ago in Ecuador, the ability to handle several languages by students at all educational levels was almost zero, due to the low attention given to the teaching of languages as a foreign language. At the time, learning another language was not considered a necessary element in the curriculum. The country's education occurred in general terms with respect to the so-called banking education. In Ecuador, English was considered an optional subject. That is, each institution had the power to include it or not in its teaching curriculum. There was a possibility of discerning the number of class hours that would be offered within the network. However, this reality changed significantly in 2014, when the government concerned itself with channeling the learning of foreign languages in better way, particularly English, for which it decided to propose changes through ministerial agreements. One of these is number 005214, which came into effect in 2016 to 2017 school year in the Sierra regime, and during the 2017 to 2018 period in the Costa regime. So there are still no measurable results of change. The agreement applies in educational centers by the Ministry of Education, which correspond to 10 years of basic general education and the 3 years of bachillerato. For this reason, the Ecuadorian government also made changes to the educational pedagogical model in schools and college. This transformation can be physically evidenced by updating the 2010 curricular reform, whose main objective is to develop the human condition and prepare for understanding. To provide a significant vision of this foreign language learning definition, a study carried out by the company Education First in 2011 is considered where it was determined that Ecuador, the level of English proficiency of its inhabitants is deficient, while in countries such as Malaysia reaches a satisfactory level. Ecuador, as an active member of the meeting and in search of compliance with the objectives set in Dakar in recent years, has tried to create a solid and favorable system for the teaching learning process of a foreign language, specifically the English language. The proposed was to include English in teaching curriculum as a foreign language, since it is a fundamental language of social interaction to the globalized world. A system that is inclusive, where all students have the possibility of learning and mastering English as a communicative language. In this context, the socialization of the proposed changes throughout the educational community becomes transcendental through conference and the generation of research spaces in the field of foreign languages. Currently, according to the Universal Foundation, 2012, more than 80% of job calls for mid-level and managerial position have as a fundamental requirement that the candidate speak a second language, and in most cases, it corresponds to English. The fact that this language is included in the formal context of the school allows it to enter the field of education as a foreign language. That is, it is learned places where the native language is other than English. According to philologists Chuck Richard and Theodore Rogers, English is the most studied language in the world in order to acquire a linguistic competence, different from that of the mother tongue, in our case, Spanish. This teaching of a second language in the formal context began to gain relevance when it was included in the European curriculum in the 18th century. They maintained that students were induced into the study of grammar and rhetoric through the use of textbooks as a basis, using basic methods that were applied in the teaching of Latin. As I have already said, English occupies an important place in today's society in various scientific and technological fields, and learning this language is very useful. For this reason, Ecuador has implemented new change in its educational policies to align with the needs of the globalized world. In order to carry out the language teaching process, the factors that affect language learning must be taken into account, and different methods and cultural aspects that surround this language need to be included. The significance of the English language is not limited to being a means of communication in everyday life, but is part of other important sectors in society, such as the scientific and technological fields. Due to the above, English is established as an essential tool, the learning of which becomes an imperative need for anyone. And so ends my experience in the first years. As a teacher, what was the really of English in those time that, thanks to the importance of the authorities, governments in that moment, today has the value it deserves and is recognized. I have nothing left to say. Thank you very much for your attention.